Today I will be doing something with my 2014 Audi A4 equipped with the EA888 Gen 2 motor that I've been wanting to do for a long time now. Like many 2-liter motors with high miles, this engine burns oil. When I got the car at about 194,000 miles, it was around a quart every 1,000 miles. So I have decided it is time to try a Berryman B-12 piston soak. In this video, I will be showing you step by step how to complete the piston soak, why the piston soak is supposed to work in the first place, and then the results and if it fixed the oil consumption. Here I'm going to briefly explain one of the main causes of oil consumption on these motors and why the B-12 should fix that. So here we have a model of a piston, and on this piston there are compression rings and then an oil control ring. An oil control ring's job is to scrape oil off the side of the cylinder wall as the piston goes down. Over time, carbon builds up in the grooves of this ring, and as that happens, the piston ring can no longer expand and contract, which then makes the oil control ring no longer able to scrape the oil off the side of the wall. So now, instead of the piston scraping oil off and preventing it from going inside the combustion chamber, oil now freely goes into the combustion chamber where it burns. This is not the only reason that an engine can burn oil, but on an EA888 Gen 1 or Gen 2 or similar motors, it is a very well-known issue. Berryman B-12 is a very aggressive solvent, and the idea is that if you pour it on top of the piston and let it soak there, as time goes by, it will go down along the piston and dissolve any carbon deposits along the oil control ring, or loosen them and free them. And once that happens, the oil control ring will no longer be stuck, and that will fix the oil consumption. But with that being said, this is a very well documented fix, and there are lots of videos online where after doing the piston soak, people's oil consumption was completely gone. Because we are adding additional volume to the oil, it is important to make sure that the oil is already a little bit low. I just opened the hood, so the level's not reading, but it is half a quart low right now. Now, the first step of this process is going to be removing the engine cover and getting access to the coil packs. Next, you're going to want to get this breather out of its holder and then undo this bolt. Then the next step is going to be taking a pick or similar tool, depressing the coil pack pins, and then pulling them out. Just be careful not to snap anything because they are in there hard sometimes. And now that all 4 coil packs are out, the next step will be removing the spark plugs. Now we have a bore scope in cylinder number 4 once all the spark plugs are out. It does look pretty worn. This is cylinder number 3, and as you can see, there is a lot of carbon built up on top of that piston, especially near the edges. This is cylinder number 2, and as you can see, right there is a ton of carbon. Now here is cylinder number 1, and as you can see, it's in better shape than the rest, I'd say. So because the 2 middle cylinders are sitting higher than we would like, we are going to turn the motor over a little bit to make the cylinders all around the same height. So now we have got a 24mm socket on the crankshaft, and we're going to turn over. So now after rotating the motor, all of these cylinders are around the same height. You can just hold your fingers on one spot and move between top of the pistons. And as you can see, all 4 are the same height. Now that all these cylinders are open, it is time for the B-12. This can is 444 milliliters, so we are going to divide it into roughly 110 milliliters per cylinder for the initial soak. And 12 hours later, we're gonna come back and rotate the piston, or rotate the crankshaft to move the pistons around, and then we're gonna check the levels of B-12 in each cylinder, and if any cylinder is dry, meaning that all the liquid has slipped past the rings, we're going to fill it back up and let it finish the 24 hours. Now just be aware that although this is 444 milliliters of liquid, it does not weigh the same as water, so if you're measuring it, be careful for that. This weighs 373 milliliters, so divide that by 4. To transfer the B-12, we have a funnel directly into the spark plug hole. There's no hose going all the way down, but the ledge is small enough down there that it shouldn't cause an issue. And now we're pouring 110 milliliters into each cylinder. Just to confirm, we have a bore scope in there, and you can see it, the piston is submerged. The key is to make sure that every piston is submerged before you let it soak. So you can add more if you need to. Now that we have verified that all 4 pistons are submerged, we're going to cover it with a clean towel. Make sure it's clean. You don't want anything falling into your combustion chamber. And then let it sit for 12 hours, and we will rotate the engine and then check to see if any cylinders need additional fluid. Now that we have the towel on top of the motor, I'm just going to shut the hood just as an added layer of insurance to make sure that nothing gets in there. So it has been a little under 2 hours now, and cylinder 3 is completely dry. The other 3 cylinders still are submerged, so those are fine, but we are going to add some more to cylinder 3 because it is dry. Also, because this motor is slanted a little bit this way, as the liquid level lowers, only a portion of the piston will be covered, as the piston's slanted like that. So to kind of combat that, we jacked up one side of the car just to try to level out the piston a little bit, so that way there's less of a discrepancy between the B-12 level from one side of the piston to the other. It has now been 12 hours since we started the piston soak. We rotated the engine about 180 degrees, so the pistons are still the same distance from top dead center, just they have moved to kind of free up the piston rings and make sure that the liquid is getting where it needs to. We did take the rest of bottle number 2 and split it up between all of the cylinders, so now they are soaking and we're in the final stretch, so we're just gonna let it sit, maybe rotate it another time, but beyond that, it's done with adding new liquid. It's been 20 hours and all 4 cylinders are now dry. We did check the oil level and it is quite a bit over full, so we're going to suck some out before we start it, just to bring it back down to the normal level. Now that we have the oil sucked out, we put everything back together and the same order is taking it out, and now we're gonna fire it up. Once you manage to get the car to start, the objective is to keep the car running and idling as long as you can. In our case, it seemed to idle just fine. We did rev it a little bit just to get the temps up and get it ready, also just to clear some initial misfires. But depending on the severity of your soak, you might have to use your foot a lot to keep it running, or you might not have to use it at all. You can't smell it through the camera, obviously, but it does smell like B-12 quite a bit. It is still missing quite a bit. It sounds like it's got a cam. Now, once the car is idling on its own, the next step is going to be getting in and driving it pretty hard until the misfires disappear. For us, this took around 10 minutes, which I have heard it takes up to 30 minutes. So we got pretty lucky in our case. What also probably helped us is that we drove it pretty hard. We did a few launches and 0 to 80 pulls, not really beating on it per se, trying to keep it as nice as we can. But we definitely got it hot for sure. So that is a very important part. As the drive progressed, the misfires disappeared pretty quickly. By the end, there were no misfires left. Also, just be aware in these upcoming videos, not every pull was floored. The car was heat soaking really bad. It was over 90 degrees out and humid, so the stock cooling system was working very hard to keep the car cool. This obviously made the car a little bit slower, so don't be trying to gauge this for speed. This car was never fast to begin with. Now, I've owned that car for a long time and I have never heard gunshot-like pops come out of the exhaust like it did at several points in that video. And my guess as to why that happened is because we got the car so hot that the catalytic converters were hot enough that the excess fuel coming out of the cylinders was igniting and making pops and bangs. Like I said, it's never done that before. I do not think it was a byproduct of the B12 soak because driving it afterwards, it never came back once the car cooled down, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, and once you get the car back, you're gonna want to change the oil and oil filter. You do not really have to change the coil packs or the spark plugs. If you want to, you can. I mean, it's not gonna hurt, but there really doesn't seem to be a reason to do that. But beyond that, that is all you need to do besides reinstalling everything. All right, once you have the engine cover back on, that is everything done. I will just say, be careful when you're doing everything because it is very hot in that whole engine bay. Engine gets super hot from having to drive it hard, so some time to cool down is nice. Now, for the results of this B12 soak, I really can't give any guarantees as I only drove the car around 50 miles after doing the soak before selling the car. That's why this is not the same car as we started in the video. But what I can say is that just from driving it around, and we did do a before and after poll, you'll see in a second, showing the smoke that comes out of the tailpipe while doing a pull before and after the soak. And from that, it appears there is no oil burning. With that being said, I can't guarantee that because we didn't really have any mileage put into it. But from the usual signs of oil consumption, it looks like the issue's fixed. I can definitely guarantee that it helped. Now, as for results that are not related to oil consumption, I think this fix is still very useful. Part of the process is basically an Italian tune-up, which is just driving the car really hard for a while, getting it hot. I do think that helps the motor as well, as now it does have some more low-end torque and it definitely feels like it's more powerful. This likely is because we burned a ton of carbon off, so I do think that this does help in that case as well. Now, just to note that this fix is not guaranteed to work on all motors. This really only works on an engine where the piston rings are clogged with carbon. If there's other mechanical damage, this is going to do little to nothing to fix the engine. But if you do know that the engine is clogged up with carbon, this is guaranteed to help. Now, guaranteed to fix, I'm not sure, but in our case, it seems like it did.